What's up? Welcome in. Hoge and Jahns back with you for our regularly scheduled midweek episode with Kevin Fishbain, but this time he's in London. I'm in Chicago. Kev, how are we feeling?
Johnsy, I don't know what day it is. I don't know what time it is. I think I've been wearing the same socks for like
Oh,
25 hours.
dude,
I should have changed my socks.
at least.
Yeah.
Wait, does
But
that mean the underwear is also the same?
well, I didn't want to get, this is a family-friendly podcast that you and Hoger have built up over the years. So I didn't want to get too risque here. But got off the plane in London, straight to the hotel. Room wasn't ready. Had to do a quick change in the locker room, straight to Bears practice. So, but I'm in my room and should get to change clothes when we're done with this podcast. For everybody keeping score.
I gave you extra 10, 15 minutes to get ready. You could have changed and showered up if you wanted.
No, it's all right. I think the listeners deserve to feel like they are here with me. And it's just a little bit of jet lag, a little bit of just powering through a busy Bears day, but a lot to get at. And yeah, big week here in London.
How many hours have you been awake?
Well, I slept for an hour on the plane.
That doesn't count.
Yeah. So it's it's kind of like I pulled like an all-nighter. I used to do those in college, right?
Yeah, for different reasons.
Yeah. I didn't expect you to be in the library studying all night. Don't worry about that. So it's just I got a little bit of a. You know what happened, because this is a podcast. I feel like our podcast listeners will appreciate this. So I had a podcast. I was listening to a podcast as I was falling asleep, and another podcast came on, and whatever podcast it was, I don't even know. The theme music like blared, and that jolted me awake. And I had not been asleep for very long. And it was one of those things where I was asleep just long enough that my body was like, "Oh no, you slept. You're good." So that was a little tough.
What was the podcast?
I don't even. Oh, you know what? I was listening. It was our former coworker Kalen Kaler's podcast. Really
the
good.
ESPN one with the backup quarterbacks.
No, this is the one she's done about Kabir, the former Packers defensive lineman.
Oh, the defensive end, the pass pressure.
Yes, it's very good. I just wrapped up the series called Spiraled. So that was either the first one or the second one I was listening to. Either way, here I am. We're powering through.
Well, you know the deal. Everyone who's listening knows the deal. You can read Kevin and I on theathletic.com. He is in London covering this week the Bears, everything Bears for us in London. I'm back here in Chicago. Adam Hoge is also there with everyone apparently from all CHGO. He won't be here today, but he will be here on Friday when we preview this game in its entirety, as we usually do every week. You can read his stuff on allchgo.com. Go get his newsletter. Go watch his stuff on YouTube as well. Kevin, busy day for you already. You had interviews with Kevin Warren, Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Kalen Williams, and DJ Moore. So let's start with this, because I just want to get this out of the way before we get to all the football conversation. Everybody's here to hear about Kalen Williams and how things are working. But we got a stadium update, at least a little bit. The Bears are apparently keeping tabs on steel prices as they try to figure things out with their stadium. What's going on with that?
Yeah, Johnsy, your stadium update is that there is no update. The only update is that Kevin Warren talked. And we are closer to the fall veto session, something he brought up. You have other legislative milestones coming up early next year that they're keeping an eye on as they try to get the approval that they need from the politicians to go forward with the stadium in Chicago. But they don't have those right now. And yeah, so they're watching those prices because they want to get moving and they don't want those construction prices to get too steep. So yeah, if you were expecting some kind of resolution. Either way, you didn't get it. So a little bit more of the same. Still, he said this. The plan is still to get the shovel in the ground in 2025, like he has said all along. So Kevin Warren, as he said, he is not the type of person who gets worn down. He is not phased, and they move forward.
But there's nothing to move.
Well, I was just gonna say they move forward, but it's kind of like on a treadmill where they're kind of like it just seems like they're running. I mean, I'm sure, like you saw that. Remember the clip from Hard Knocks that was kind of shoehorned in there? They're talking about the tables in the stadium that they don't have permission yet to build. So they're doing lots of things behind the scenes, and that's kind of one of the things he explained today. That so that when they can get a shovel in the ground, they're ready to go. So it's like, all right, we still don't know exactly where a stadium's going to be or how it's going to be paid for, but once we get everything approved, we can roll.
But here's the thing, like. Yeah. I'm just curious as you're sitting in there, like listening to the questions and the answers, the long answers. You can get things approved pretty quickly in Arlington Heights, and you own the property. If you want to go put a shovel in the ground next week, you probably can. They've already knocked down like everything. Like, did you get a sense at all that like that's even a possibility, or is the focus still on the lakefront and whatnot?
Focused on the lakefront, but the Arlington Heights is still in the picture. And he was asked questions about the fact that he has never ruled it out. It's still there. And you're right. There's certain tax things they probably have to firm up, but they got through a lot of that stuff early on. That was the kind of the first obstacles were those tax situations. And then they shifted gears to Chicago. So yeah, if they wanted to get a shovel in the ground around the Heights, you know what, Johnsy, it was a long commute from where the Bears practice at Hanbury Manor, in Ware, England, spelled like
nice.
Yeah, spelled like a DeMarcus Ware. About an hour and a half to get to our hotel, and on multiple occasions we looked out our bus window and saw lots of cranes, and we know Kevin Warren likes cranes. So, should the Bears move to London?
No. The private equity question came up to him.
Yes.
I can't see that. He said it's not of their interest in Chicago. I can't see that being a real thing the Bears consider. But any takeaways from that?
He says not at this time, but they're going to look into it. And the reason it comes up with them is, private equity would be relevant to a team that is looking for somebody or something to help them pay for a stadium. And private equity, now the league voted upon that being available to teams that could help the Bears. But he just kind of, I will say, I did take note that he was very much reiterating that he is going to be studying everything there is to study and research and know about private equity. So they're going to do their due diligence to see if it is a route that they would go at some point if they needed to. But as of now, yeah, it's not happening.
I just can't see. I just can't see Kevin Warren taking that to the McCaskey family and that being approved.
Yeah, I agree, but if they still can't get what they need for the stadium and some private equity firm is willing to...
No, they can't get what they need for the stadium in Chicago. They're fine in Arlington Heights.
Correct. Now, I
don't
will
think I'm wrong in saying that.
They did. I remember, it's so funny to think back to that, presentation at Hersey High School that's now reaching, its 2-year anniversary was last month.
That was like the 2021 training camp. That was just a waste of time.
22, the season opening game. Yeah, it was very classic Bears to schedule this during the NFL season opener of 2022 on a Thursday night at Hersey High School. And they had all these great plans and great ideas. And I do recall that, they said something like they will pay for the whole stadium, but they were going to be seeking some help for stuff in Arlington Heights that was extra, whether it's the businesses that they would develop or whatever they want to develop in the area. They had big plans, and those plans are just sitting on ice. as they, have put obviously full force into Chicago.
All right. Enough about the stadium talk. Am I missing anything? I feel like we just bored a bunch of listeners.
Listen, we just gave our listeners the non-update.
Yeah.
And I think it was a very entertaining non-update because that's why we do what we do, John.
I got a steel guy if the Bears need one.
There you go.
Text me, Kevin Warren. I'm serious. Big time steel guy. Just let me know. We got connections here. The vibe in London is pretty good. The Bears seem pretty happy. They don't look, at least from the videos that I watched, they didn't seem too tired.
No, I think that they all seem to like the plan of getting here. They got here Tuesday morning London time, and then all of them just stay up till Tuesday night. And players went into downtown. DJ Moore said a few of them went on like a food tour. Went to Chinatown, went to a couple other places, and like they're doing what I'm going to try to do tonight, right? You just got to power through regardless of how long you slept in the plane, and try to get your body adjusted. So they seem happy with that, and I think too, and this is such an obvious thing, it's so different the fact that they're coming off that win, right? Like to win the way that they won. And then get on the plane for this trip, which is just such a season altering thing to have to come out here, to have to go to Dallas on Monday and suddenly you're on a plane Monday night and you're in a foreign country. It's a lot. And to do it after a win like that, it does make a difference. Now, I say that acknowledging too that the flip side is also true. And it would make a big difference for them flying home ahead of a bye week to make sure that they beat Jacksonville Jaguars. And that's something DJ Moore brought up today too. Like DJ was like, yeah, like that matters. Every win matters, but like how some wins just mean a little bit more. This is one of those wins where like if they can get this win and be 4-2 at the bye, I think everybody understands like how critical that would be.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So this is what we're gonna do. It's not often that we get news conferences with Ryan Poles. So he talked to the media out there, including yourself, for 16 minutes. So we're gonna play 3 questions and 3 of his answers in a row here. He's talking about the offense, and he's talking about Kalen Williams, and he's talking about Shane Waldron. That'll be your question. You'll hear your voice, Kevin, here soon enough. So, and then let's react to this because I feel like something good is happening offensively, and the Bears are starting to reveal at least some of their communications. Now, a couple weeks ago, they may have been viewed as potential red flags, but it looks like something happened, something changed, something positive is occurring, I think, offensively. So let's get into it. Let's hear from Ryan Poles right now.
How much progress did you see in the last 2 weeks, taking into account that those are 2 of the league's worst defenses?
Yeah, it's the NFL. I get the record part, but his operation part I thought was really clean. I thought from watching his eyes and just going through the process, it was more poised and controlled, and he knew where to go with the ball faster. So those are all promising things to see, regardless if you're going against the scout team. And I think too, when you say, well, shouldn't these things be ready to go at the end of the preseason? It's a different speed. There's different combination of guys out there, and I think he's done a good job improving over the last few weeks.
Right, so talk about the offense kind of expanding there. You made a lot of changes in the offseason, obviously, offensive coordinator and also the team. Are you happy where that team is now 5 weeks into the season?
Yeah, that's a part of just the adapting and adjusting that I've seen from really the preseason, the week 1 to 2 and on. Trying to figure out how does this team operate the best? What do we do well? Do those things a lot? What are we struggling with? Obviously, there's detailing that we'll try to improve in practice. But maybe we put some of that on the side for right now and really dig into what we do well and what we're comfortable with, and then we'll expand from there. So I really like the ability to adapt and adjust, and then putting our playmakers in a position to be successful.
What have you learned about Shane over the past few weeks?
Yeah, his openness. Again, we all, from scouting to coaching, we all have these philosophies that we have, but at the end of the day, it's about the players and putting them in a position to be successful. So just identifying where Caleb's at in his process. Do we need to slow it up? Do we need to speed it down? Do we need to make decisions like getting in a no huddle and a tempo situation so he can get into a rhythm? changing the cadence up, different things like that. So his ability to adapt on the fly has been impressive as we've gone.
First, I love that we got a question from an English reporter that wasn't about like, what are you doing in London? You know, like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? It was about the actual football. How about that?
Yeah, and there was one later. I think it was Eberflus got a question about Javon Dexter.
Wait, from an English reporter?
Yeah, breaking
fantastic.
down. So you heard my Shane Waldron question, and I thought it was interesting, Jahns, to hear Poles. I don't want to go as far as like acknowledge, but like he said, like coaches sometimes have their philosophies that they like to stick to, and they have to adjust. And I think we all saw it, but to kind of hear that said, you don't hear that said very often, even though we all know what's happening. And we all saw like the way that Shane Waldron has certainly adjusted the offense, and he's made adjustments every week from Cole Kmet's playing time to getting DeAndre Swift involved more, to more under center, to more up tempo, all those different things we've seen him adjust. And I thought it was important to hear Ryan Poles say it in that way and kind of give credit to Shane Waldron. You've written this too, Jahns, that if we're going to criticize Shane Waldron for what happened in 3 weeks, I think it's important also to throw some flowers his way for what the offenses looked like the past 2 weeks.
I don't think it's, while it was, I guess, disconcerting at one point, right? Like that you have to have these conversations with your players, that Shane Waldron himself is talking about meeting with the leadership council on the offensive side of the football. Like that in itself, as Mark Potash said on this show not too long ago, that's a red flag. In our experience, that is a sign of things not working. But it's working. Like whatever is happening communication-wise is coming together, and Shane Waldron deserves credit for it. The best coaches adapt to the personnel. They listen to their players. They adjust to make things work. And yes, I know it's against Carolina Panthers, really bad defense. I know it's against the Los Angeles Rams, really bad defense. I understand that, but the adjustments were made and they worked. The numbers look good. Kalen Williams has 2 300-yard passing games in 5 games. Like that's a good thing. That's a positive for me. I don't know. Did you get any sense from Poles that like he saw it as a negative, or do you believe him when he says I've been impressed by that? That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm sure nobody was happy the way this thing started. Now we don't know. We probably won't ever know how Poles felt exactly about those first 3 weeks and where he pinned blame. But I think that and we hear this a lot too, Jahns, where it can be lip service of like taking the quote unquote communication and spinning it into a positive, like, oh, look, these guys are talking to each other and fixing it. But then we saw the proof that they did. Like we've had 2 games now where it's, looks so much better. So I think that, yeah, like I'm guessing just like everyone in the building, he was disappointed in the way the offense looked, but has to be thrilled now because if this is a sign of this thing moving forward, that he can adjust like this, he can adapt like this, then you feel better about what he's going to bring to your team, as opposed to 3 weeks ago we were like talking about a new play caller again.
Like also, everything's going to be held in the context too that Kalen Williams, as high as your expectations might have been like preseason, he's still a rookie. So if he's going out against any NFL defense, and again, I don't care how bad it is, and he's successful, if he's efficient, if he's producing explosive plays, if he's connecting with your high-paid best receiver, those are good things, everybody. Who cares if the Panthers are that bad? That's on them. You're supposed to be bad teams. You're supposed to run them off the field. The Bears did. Embrace it. I think it's a good thing. Poles sounds like he thinks it's a good thing. Anything else strike you from the 15 minutes with Poles? I know there were more questions about Kalen Williams. You heard his first answer there, talking about how he's just the operations cleaner. Like things have just improved with time from him. So sorry, anything else stand out?
One other thing he mentioned about Keenan Allen, which I thought was important, was he was asked about how Allen hasn't really produced yet. Obviously, he was hurt. He said if you watch last game, like you see Keenan Allen's potential and some of the routes he was running. So you can kind of start to. It seems like they feel fine, like they feel like that's coming, that he's doing that, and it got me thinking, Johns. I didn't get a chance to ask this, but that must have been an interesting tape review for Kalen Williams because here you have 36 points, your best game throwing the football. Meanwhile, you missed Rome Odunze on a deep ball opportunity. DJ Moore dropped a pass, maybe two.
Yeah, I think too.
Keenan Allen had a couple routes that, like Kale admitted, the wind took him on the first pass of the game. Like, they got to be feeling pretty good watching the tape that, like, oh, if we corrected these things or if we hit these guys, that's 45 points. So I thought that was interesting. The polls kind of mentioned the way that Keenan Allen looked was again encouraging for just the fact this offense is going to hopefully have all these answers.
Now you watched the film. This isn't a Wednesday episode without us asking you a film question. This week it was Kalen Williams and DJ Moore. DJ Moore talked as well. Do you think week 5 is the start of something for those two? Just the start.
Yeah, I think it was a real positive step, and you could maybe even trace it back to that touchdown against LA after they had the miss before halftime. That seemed to be like a real galvanizing moment for the two of them. But that's the funny thing too. Going back to the Rome Odunze at Keenan Allen is like, what if on Sunday DJ just has 3 catches for 40 yards and Keenan Allen goes for 100? But I do think that you saw the importance of those two getting on the same page, which also was a topic of conversation today in London.
Ryan Poles was so happy with the what he did for the offensive line, his assembly of the offensive line, just in terms of the starters, then the depth. I know he was asked about it today, and he gave some injury updates as well. Do you think his confidence at all is wavered in what he's built offensively up front?
That's a good question. I don't think so because he, as you said, he takes such pride in the depth, right? So what's happened this year? Nate Davis wasn't playing at a high level, re-aggravated injury. So you have an opportunity to put somebody in, and they have Matt Pryor. Matt Pryor's played well. Kevin Jenkins goes down, and you have an ability to put in Bill Murray, and Bill Murray played really well on Sunday. Now, the Ryan Bates to Coleman Shelton, obviously, Coleman Shelton had his struggles and the offensive line wasn't playing well, but he's played better of late. And if you went into the season banking on Ryan Bates, I guess you would feel good that you can count on Coleman Shelton. So I think from that perspective, that the backups he has assembled have been able to be good contingency plans, that you've been able to lose your 2 starting guards and not really miss a step. He probably is very proud of that plan. Now, he gave Nate Davis $30 million, right? He didn't go out and get a stalwart left tackle. The guy he got in Ryan Bates has been hurt. Karana Magaji hasn't really played. So I'm guessing at top level, I don't know if there's disappointment, but I'm sure he wishes that they didn't like
frustration.
Things, well, I don't know if it's frustration because it's like he feels good about his backups and he should, but you don't want to have to go to the backups, right? Like when they're like, oh, next man up, we feel really good about our next man up, but you don't want to have to go to your next man up. You want to be able to just rely on your starting 5, and they haven't been able to do that. So I think he's probably spinning it that I've been in his mind, like I've assembled such a better plan B and it's worked well. And that's 100% true. He has all the right in the world to be happy about that. But you obviously wanted plan A to be the one that worked.
Yeah, there's got to be some level of frustration, disappointment with the whole Nate Davis situation.
Oh, yeah.
When Bill, everyone in the press box, we didn't talk about this enough on our last podcast, but everyone in the press box, like as soon as Bill Murray took the field, you're like, whoa.
Yep.
That's something, given the contract, that Nate Davis has, given everything the Bears have said about him. And I think the Bears were willing to give him the benefit of the doubt coming into the season because of everything that happened last year, the family tragedy and all that stuff. Like, the Bears understand that a lot goes into making a good player a good player. But to see Bill Murray take the field against the Panthers and then play as well as he did, like, that's, while encouraging for Bill Murray, that's something. Like, what's the best way to put it? Like, that is I think it's a good sign in a sense that an organization is willing to look past the money paid to a player, the money spent on a player, and just go with your best player in those moments, which just now happens to be Bill Murray at left guard.
Yeah, and that they made the move. How much the groin injury factored in the switch to Pryor, we don't know, but it obviously, it played a role. But it seemed like they were going in that direction anyways when they made the move in week 3. And then, yeah, look, Bill Murray was somebody that a lot of people pointed out as having a really good summer, and he made the team for a reason. So, yeah, again, it's this. I remember, this is a bit of a different analogy, but Ryan Pace signed players to replace his draft picks that didn't work, right? Like Robert Quinn to replace Leonard Floyd, and Jimmy Graham to replace Trey Burton, or his free agent signings, or Adam Shaheen.
Adam Shaheen.
And yeah, Adam Shaheen. So it's like he, in the moment, those seemed like these shrewd signings that made sense and filled a hole, but you didn't want to have to go do that, right? But look, Ryan Poles, it's important to have those good backups because you just so rarely have all 5 of your offensive linemen. He got those guys. He maybe didn't bank on having to use them this early, but he's got to feel good that putting in Matt Pryor and Bill Murray in has been a positive for the Bears O-line.
If we move on to Kalen Williams, anything else from Ryan Poles that's worth mentioning?
No.
Okay. Kalen Williams, long press conference. A few questions right off the bat about his travels.
Our good friend Patrick Finley.
From our good friend Patrick Finley. So let's do it. Let's listen to Kalen Williams talking about his first 5 games of the season.
About the throw to DJ.
Yeah.
Half time, that was a dart. And
Yep.
I was watching a tape before you were drafted. Kalen generates nice heat on throws through his unique release, and that is it will challenge secondaries in the NFL. We've clearly done that. You've touched on the 5 games in your development.
Yep.
How do you assess that performance on Sunday? Because that clearly was your best individually, and then just the 5 games so far, and how that's been an introduction into the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's been great. I think it's, these 5 games have been really important for me. The amount of ball that I've been learning, and I think the progress that I've had so far only, amounts to everybody else, meaning the other 10 guys and the coaches that are out there calling it, us running it. I think it starts, in practice and how we've handled ourselves. From that Indy loss, from there we made jumps in practice. I'm not speaking about the game or anything like that. We've made huge jumps in practice about focus, about details, and I think that starts with our leaders that we have. I've spoke about this personality of this team multiple times, whether it's after the comeback or these losses and things like that, and how we respond to certain things. And so I think we've done a good job. We got to get better, keep getting better. But I think myself and my progress, it amounts to those guys and how they've been leading.
I love that we had another question from an English reporter about football, but I love even more that. Do you remember the days of Mark Trestman where every practice was described as great and good? And then later it was Pat Manley revealing on 670 The Score that, no, these practices weren't good. In fact, some of them were awful. I think this is why I appreciate what Kalen Williams is saying even more. Like, he said this after the game on Sunday, after beating the Carolina Panthers, that apparently the Bears had a bad offensive practice, a bad one, And then the offensive leaders proceeded to talk about it afterwards, and to get everybody on the same page, to get things right. And then things clicked for the rest of the week, and then you saw the performance on Sunday. I like that he's talking about practice. I like that he's willing to acknowledge that some of these practices have stunk, or at least some portions of practice have stunk.
Yeah, well, it's funny too when you bring up the Trestman era or other coaches who deny that you have a rough practice. We see all of training camp and OTAs. Like we know that bad practices exist, that they happen. We saw it with Caleb Williams. So yeah, no, I think it speaks to his maturity. It speaks to his ability to learn, and use those practices against a really good defense to keep progressing and keep getting better over these 5 weeks. And we've all seen the charts about passer rating and completion percentage and yards and everything going up and up. And we can speak to the defenses, but you can't control who you play. And we've certainly seen Bears teams play down in their competition before. So yeah, no, I think a lot of it is just a kind of about the way, I say this a lot about Caleb Williams. He's just wired differently. And I think that's just one of myriad examples to reflect that.
The idea that like the captains are speaking up, whether it's with Shane Waldron or, with Caleb Williams after these practices, like I like it too. It seems like they're coming together, and the Caleb Williams is now bossy, apparently, to DJ Moore. I know he was kind of joking around a bit, and he had to explain himself afterwards. But like when he said the word bossy, you're sitting there like, what did you think from, at least initially?
Well, it's funny because Caleb had walked into the room. It's kind of like it looked like a greenhouse where we were doing these press conferences, and behind the greenhouse is this like beautiful meadow that leads to like an old golf house. Anyways, so he said it. So it was kind of tongue in cheek, like he's just kind of making fun of Caleb, but he also, you could tell he meant it, because then there were follow-up questions like, well, what do you mean by bossy? Tell us. And DJ said that like he needed Caleb to kind of tell him he was doing something wrong. And that helped lead to the production we saw on Sunday. And then Caleb went up there, and Caleb kind of joked like he didn't love being called bossy, but he explained that it's a learning process for him to figure out what buttons to push with his receivers, how to talk to them, and that so much of this growing process is feeling comfortable telling them that they have to do something wrong. And DJ called him little bro. He goes, yeah, it's like little bro is telling you to do something wrong. You're like, why are you talking to me like that? But then they kind of realize like, oh wait, you're right, and you're the quarterback. And again, it just all goes to this this process of this offense kind of growing together, and Caleb Williams being assertive, which he needs to be. He needs to be assertive. He's a number one pick, got a lot of talent, and he's got to pick his spots, I'm sure. But it's good to hear those kind of things, especially when the receiver, in this case DJ, wants it.
To me, this is just another great example of covering the development of a rookie quarterback in his first season, where things are just different. Just different. It's what we're hearing. It's what we're seeing. It's what the players are hearing. It's what the players are seeing. It's what they're telling us. It's what the coaches are saying. Everything he said in that answer about practice, everything that is being said about him being bossy now, it's different. I'm not wrong for saying that. Am I?
No. I mean, we've seen it since the day he stepped in Hal's Hall. I think there is something that comes with being raised the way he was raised, being in the spotlight the way he's been in the spotlight, being as successful as he's been, having to deal with some adversity, especially his last season. Like, it's all built up to this moment. And then in this case, he dealt with some serious adversity the first 3 weeks of the season with the offense lagging behind. So, it's like, I wrote about this today in a story that will be up tomorrow morning, which I think is tomorrow's Thursday, right?
Correct.
Okay, Thursday morning.
Thursdays happen in the United Kingdom, is this,
Yes.
like they happen in the United States, Kev.
Okay, good to know. So it'll be a little recap of some of the things we heard from Caleb and Matt Eberflus. And I wrote that, Caleb has these welcome the NFL moments on the field every week, right? And they'll continue to grow. And he's already had off the field welcome the NFL moments that most rookies don't experience in the first month. And certainly most rookies, if they do, don't find a way to bounce back from it and have your entire group thriving.
Anything else, Kev? I know you're tired. You get the jet lag going. I'm sure you're starving. So thank you for doing the show. Long day for you already. How are the Bears dealing with the jet lag? I thought I heard polls talk about like their scheduling, like vitamins, giving guys masks
Yeah,
on the plane.
I mean, you know how this sports science stuff is now. I mean, they've done a lot of different stuff in terms of getting guys information of how they should try to sleep on the plane, when they should try to sleep, what they should do when they get here, what they should eat, when they should eat, all the different types of stuff. There's always a science to it. But you know the thing is, Johns, on Sunday, like it's going to help obviously if they're well rested, if they're acclimated, if they're feeling good and they're feeling confident. Most likely the better team's going to win. I think the Bears are the better team, but the Jaguars certainly showed a lot against the Colts, and we know they've got some really good players on that team. They've done London. They do London every year, so this is not new to them. It's going to be a very tough game. It's going to be an interesting environment. One of the things Caleb talked about today was he was asked about the difference between college and pro, and I didn't expect this answer, but he said he's getting used to how loud it is on third down on the road, and he can't always hear the play. And he said the loudest it's actually ever been that if impacted his ability to hear the play was the first play of his career. Do you remember that roar from the stadium as he walked down to the field?
Yeah.
Like we felt it at Soldier Field. It was crazy. And he heard it too, and he was like, I need to hear the play. Sunday at Tottenham is going to be interesting because it's going to be really loud, and you're also going to have just a lot of just random fans in there who are just going to be constantly cheering.
Yeah, they
So
don't care if Cole Clement's out there asking everybody to keep it quiet.
Right. So that'll be an interesting quirk.
It's built to be loud. Like
yes.
when we went through that stadium, it's just the architecture of it, how it's designed. It's built to be insane.
And I've told people this a lot over the years, Johnsy, that when the Bears came back and took the lead against the Raiders in the fourth quarter, that was about as loud as I'd ever heard a Bears game outside of like the playoff game or maybe like the win over the Rams, like things like that from 2018. That was really, really loud. Also, I went back through the game book of that game. What a weird game.
Yeah, well, that's another thing about London international games. Like weird things kind of happen.
Weird things happen. But I think this team is like they're putting themselves in position to leave no doubt about their preparation. It's just going to be then, can they execute? I sound like a coach. Can they execute on Sunday and protect the football and do what they've been doing and build on this stuff? Because like we're not just blowing smoke. Like it's one thing to beat a bad Panthers team. It's another thing to dominate a bad Panthers team like they did. Like there's something there, something to build off. And they got a really good opportunity to do it on Sunday in Jacksonville. Couple quick plugs, if I may.
Do it.
So when you're listening to this right now, you will see a story on the site, kind of takeaways from Ryan Poles. Also, one of our colleagues from the UK was here helping me out today. So he wrote a story about the private equity conversation. I had a lot of fun talking to Roger Bennett. If you're a soccer fan, you know who he is. He runs the Men in Blazers network. He is now an American citizen. He's a British American. Grew up in Liverpool. Grew up a diehard Bears fan. Can you imagine, Johnsy, if you were just a random Chicagoan in 1985 and your phone rings and it's a 9-year-old kid from Liverpool asking you to tell them what the score is because that was like the only way they could get anything live. So it was.
When I read that, like my thought was like, I would entertain that conversation for like 5-10 minutes, and then I would hang up. Like I'd just almost be in like disbelief. Like that just am I getting pranked by like one of my buddies or something like that? Did that just happen?
I'm sure. I'd love to hear from people if they like because they're because he's not the first person I've talked to over the years or who said that they did that. But so anyways, it's a very cool conversation I had with him. That story's up. It's fun to hear about people's fandom that's not a natural, like, oh, you grew up in Chicago, so naturally you're a Bears fan. So that's up. I mentioned all the story up Thursday morning, whenever that is. I think it's, as you mentioned, John, it's the day after Wednesday. And then mailbag Friday. And yeah, game coverage Sunday, and you'll have another podcast with Hoge. CHGO out in full force out here, taking over London.
Is Braggs behaving?
I have not seen Braggs yet. I've sources close to the situation indicated he was in Paris.
Fully international,
Oh,
Greg Braggs.
yeah, so we'll see. But Mark Carman was here today, along with Adam Hoge. But yeah,
Are the Sun Times guys behaving?
so far everyone has behaved. I was very calm, cool, and collected when I showed up at the hotel after an overnight flight and found out my room wasn't ready. That's fine.
Hey, just gotta roll with the punches.
Change my clothes, brush my teeth, and get on the bus and go to cover practice.
What's the saying Eberflus gave us not too long ago? Water off the duck's back?
Sure, yeah.
Does that apply in London?
Sure, yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gav.
So hey, the point is we've got a lot of fun stuff between this podcast and the stuff we'll have written from here. So stay tuned.
Okay. Kevin, thank you. Get yourself some fish and chips, a nice pint tonight. Get some sleep. Maybe talk to you Friday. I'll text you a bunch. You know that. Read Kevin, everything he just mentioned on theathletic.com, Adam Hoge on allchgo.com. Get this pullover and more Hoge and Jahns gear at hogeandjahns.com. That is it. Kevin, any final thoughts?
I think I'm going to take you up on that, and I'm going to go have myself fish and chips. I still need to stay up for like 2 more hours.
Well, make sure a couple beers are in that too.
Thanks,
my friend. We will be back. We will be back on Friday with your usual pregame episode. We'll get into the Jaguars a bit more. Until then, read us on theathletic.com. Thanks, Kev. See ya.